All right. It is Monday night, and we are here for our weekly live. Hope you guys are doing well. Appreciate you coming out and hopping in the chat. We'll run it down tonight, answer all the questions that you may have burning around digital assets, estate planning, mitigating taxes, private investments, different types of investments, all the things that go along with what the channel's about. And we're over here live on TikTok as well. So I put out a few videos today. Some big things kind of coming. Man, excited about where the market is for crypto and digital assets. We've got a lot of things that are moving. So we've got just some of the things offhand that we talked about this morning in the mastermind. Goldman Sachs is rolling out their blockchain-enabled platform for trading. That they're actually going to spin off into a separate company. That's big news for the actual implementation and use of this technology in certain applications. And for Goldman Sachs to be a leader in that area, I think that that's going to be extremely important. We work with R3 Corda. I think that it could be intermingled with that somehow. We'll see what actually ends up shaking out. R3 talked about, potential acquisition or somebody else buying them out. Potential acquisition. We'll see if that actually takes place or not. You've got Gary Bear. He did not step down today, even though that was the rumor. So still waiting on that to happen. Excuse me. We did have some interesting developments. Stuart Alderati did share an email. A couple of different things. So if Gary is going to leave, which is what everybody believes and everybody hopes for crypto, we need a new SEC chairman. So there was supposedly a meeting with Trump and Brian Brooks today, who is current acting CEO of Coinbase. Came from the OCC, brought in a lot of regulation there around digital assets while he was at that regulator and the head of that regulatory body. I would really like to see him in that position at the SEC if that's something that he's game for. We've seen Hester Pierce say that she doesn't want it. In the email that was shared by Stuart Alderati, which is where I was headed earlier, the other gentleman that might be up for that position was in on ETHgate. There's we'll see what actually ends up coming about for ramifications or consequences for some of the things that were done there. I was at the premiere of XRP Unleashed down in Houston earlier. Actually, it was last week on Wednesday. I think they finally made their rounds. They did Boston, they did DC, they did New York, they did LA, Arizona, Georgia, here in Houston, and I think they may take it international. They're actually going to roll out the launch of that on Hulu and Amazon Prime on the 21st. So if you want to support Chris and Maya, who are part of the XRP Army, made a lot of money on Doge, and then they've decided to roll that back in and really try to support this community and put together a documentary around some of the influencers in the space. Jimmy Valley, hop from place to place. He's big in that film. Talked about all of what I liked about the film was they didn't really say that anything wrong was done. It's kind of implied by the plot and the things that were portrayed and displayed. But they really didn't they didn't put forth anything that they couldn't back up, which I really appreciated in the documentary. I have a very limited role myself in there, just a little bit. I have a few lines that they filmed for me. A lot of my content that they filmed back in February of this year will be in the second film that they put out, basically around the change in monetary policy and currency and what that's going to look like, similar to like Mike Maloney's series that he put out as well. So excited for that. That probably hits theaters, and then they'll do a rollout for that maybe middle of next year, maybe a little bit later than that, maybe a year from now. But they get a lot of really good content. I know that they travel on their own dime. They did not ask me for anything. They flew here to Dallas on the coldest day of the year and paid for the location for us to shoot, and just were nice enough to come do it. And didn't really ask much of me, but other than to show up and sign over rights, right? So, and I didn't know I was a third person that they filmed for that documentary. Didn't know if it would turn into anything. Really happy that it did, and that people got behind it and they're getting the success that they work for. So excited to see how that turns out. Excited for them and the launch of that and premieres. But aside from that, like I said, back from my squirrel chase, I'm back over here to the email. Stuart Alderati shared an email from Discovery in the SEC case that Bill Hinman sent out to the rest of the agency discussing the Ethereum speech, and it basically shows that like they had internal comms about this, and he still went ahead and did it anyway. And so the other gentleman that's up for the SEC chair was involved in that, so he was either privy to it and didn't do anything about it, or he was actively participating and like pushing Bill on to do it. Either way, not so good. If you knew about it and didn't do anything, probably not good there too. So excited to see if Brian Brooks may step into that role. You've also got Brad Garlinghouse has proposed that Chris Giancarlo, who's been head of the Digital Dollar Project, end up in that spot. We'll see if he takes that spot. Either one of those, I think, would be fantastic for head of the SEC moving forward. And you've got Elon and Vivek in place to create change and reduce overhead and costs associated with government agencies and reform things. Really excited for what that's going to look like over the next really 2 years here with all of the executive branch, legislative branch, judicious branch, and the Supreme Court on that side of the aisle. Good and bad. I'm sure that there will be things there that get passed that people don't really enjoy. Anything too far one direction isn't always good, but I think some reform in government and government policy based on the last 4 years and, really since Kennedy would be good. So excited to see what they do there. Back on the digital asset side of the fence, if we do see Gary removed, if we do see ETFs for XRP, another big thing was 21 Shares talked about, demand for their product and their ETP or exchange traded product. You've also got another big deal this week. The OCC has approved options on the Bitcoin ETF. So right now, and tomorrow will be a tell. We'll see if anything happens within the next 48 hours here. So we have a wealth management arm of Digital Ascension Group, Digital Wealth Partners. In talking with all of the advisors that we have over there, they always look to hedge positions, make sure that they're mitigating downside risk. Right now, the institutions and banks that hold large allocations to the Bitcoin ETF have no way to do that. They don't really have a way to hedge to the downside or buy options if it were to drop. So if you did see something happen with Tether, there could be significant losses to that. And we've talked about that in previous, lives here and also videos that I have on the channel. I think that that's a possibility. And they would really need those options in place to be able to hedge their losses. So as long as nothing happens within the next 24 hours here, they should have those Wednesday. And I think, things could be a lot safer for mitigating the downside risk of Bitcoin and potential losses for the investment banks, pension funds, and a lot of other people that have made significant allocations to the Bitcoin ETFs. So hopeful that they get that in place before anything bad happens. We got a few questions coming in over here on TikTok, and we also have them here on Twitter, which is now X, and then you've got YouTube as well. So again, appreciate you guys hopping in the chat, asking good questions. We'll run it down tonight. Before we get started, if you wouldn't mind pressing that like button, it really does help the channel, and the algorithm gets it out to more people. If you have somebody that you think this would be valuable for, please share it and subscribe if you haven't. And nice to see you, and excited to run it down with you guys tonight for about an hour, and then we'll wrap it up. So, all right. First off, Atlantic Living, you're awesome. You always hop in here and ask good questions, and appreciate your participation and viewership as always. They say, I saw the video where you spoke well at the premiere. Was there anything missed in the documentary that's vitally important? If so, what would you have added to the documentary? So again, I when I originally spoke and did the interview and did all that with them, I thought the direction of the film, and they did too, was going to be more centered around XRP and the financial system and the shift that was occurring. And throughout the interviews, they just aggregated so much evidence toward ETHgate that they decided to pivot and kind of make that the focal point of the documentary. And again, I think they presented it in a really compelling way that wasn't anything that they couldn't back up, anything that was like outside the scope of something that was absolutely provable or that they had evidence for, they didn't put in the film. And so I think they put in there as much as they possibly could specific to that, the direction that they pivoted. I thought that it was well put together. I don't know that they could have added anything else that would have made it more comprehensive. They really kind of gave a good background of what digital assets were, catching people up to this point. Ethereum, XRP, Ripple, the Ethereum Alliance, all of the parties that were involved in ETHgate and everything that's kind of transpired. And, I don't really have anything to add to it. I think that they did a really good job. And again, my anticipation was a completely different film when we first started, and so that's what I spoke to. And I think that that's going to be the second iteration of what they present. But kudos to them again for putting that together, and excited to see what the world thinks about it when it comes out on streaming services on the 21st. Atlantic Enemy says, same person, another good question. They said, regarding 2026 to 2027 XRP's price, many want to know, how could XRP retrace drastically if regulations, adoptions, integrations, legislation, and standardization take place? Could utility appreciate in the bear? I don't think we're going to have a bear. So the dynamics in this market would drastically shift if you had utility of the asset. And the reason for that would be payment volume or transactional volume over the network that would hold price stability. So once you had enough liquidity in the asset and it was pushed up, I think through the ETFs and the filing there, that they'll be able to drive liquidity into XRP and drive the price much higher, just like they have with Bitcoin. I think you'll also get, the launch of stable coins and other CBDCs on the XRPL, which will also bring liquidity to the network, especially now that it has digital identity native to the network. And you've also got oracles, so markets and other DeFi products I think will get rolled out. So with all of those things as momentum, once there was enough liquidity in the asset to be able to move transaction volume for Swift or the back end of the stock market or commodities or derivatives, 2026, 2027, you'll see a high stable price because the volume over the network and the demand for the XRP will be consistent. And there won't be these large retraces like we've seen in the past. I think the whole market dynamic will shift in a very different way on the other side of utility. So it's a really good point. You bring up a lot of things here for the implementation of this network and utility and adoption and regulation, word on word. 2026, 2027, I think you're going to have, I'll go ahead and say it here, a $10,000 plus XRP if we get derivatives. There's the contingency. I'm going to leave that in there. But honestly, if you had that volume moving over the network and Codius comes in and you've got full scale adoption, I don't see why you couldn't get a 5-digit XRP to be able to be supported and used and valued at $10,000 plus in the years that you mentioned, 2026 and 2027. Over here, we've got, should we hire a professional and give it to charity police, etc., that route? What are you doing? Not sure what the question means here. I think everybody's different. Some people are going to want to manage their own XRP, which I think is fine. I do think that you should look to get it into institutional custody. I think that's going to be difficult if you don't have it in an entity and you're not working with a wealth manager. I think at some point in the not too distant future, you're going to have quantum computers that can hack cold wallets. And if you are not, holding your asset in some type of wallet infrastructure that shards the keys and holds this across HSMs and has security, I would just be looking for those solutions, and maybe those will happen ad hoc for people that have, enough assets. That's kind of what it is up to this point. If you got millions of dollars, you can get your own custodial account in a few places. But I think moving forward beyond 2026, it's going to be very, I don't want to say difficult, but potentially problematic if you don't have your assets in qualified custody. Joseph Jones says, did Rip make it to Dallas? Yes, he did. Crypto Rip was in Dallas. I got to see him at our event on Saturday. We throw those for the individuals in the Mastermind, Beyond Broke Mastermind. We do have quarterly events, IRL in real life, sometimes here in Dallas and sometimes, across the U.S. We've done a few. We did one event earlier this year in Lake Tahoe, which was really cool. We'll continue to do those, and on the other side of price appreciation for XRP, have a little bit more jingle in our pockets and be able to do some bigger stuff. We did do one event earlier this year in September at the W here in Dallas, and we hosted family offices at that. And anyway, really enjoyed that. Got to bring a lot of the experts and professionals from our partners at Digital Ascension Group and the family office on that side to provide their expertise around different offerings and services for institutional players in the space and family offices that would like those types of services. I have CRP and Coinbase. Is it safe there? Coinbase is it's a central point. So most of the ETF holdings are held at Coinbase. It's a central point of failure. If Coinbase were to have a breach and a problem, it could be a really big problem for a lot of people. So it's unlikely that that'll happen. We've talked to them. They are a partner of ours for the wealth management arm of Digital Family Office. And so, they've got the insurance. I think they're going to be around. It would be really bad if something happened to them. Velvet 921 says, friend said that XRP token has no value. It will be a pump and dump. Okay. Is there a bank I can call to hear from their words that they're using the token? He said he'll listen if a bank confirms. Look, there's lots of research out there that shows XRP, Ripple, R3, and other people that are using the token to be able to settle different transactions and trialing that and have been over the last 12 years. You can call Bank of America. They're not going to tell you anything. If by time they tell you, it's already going to be the price that it's going to be on the other side of it. They're not going to say, hey, you should buy some XRP because we're going to be using it next week. People that want that type of stuff are people that want to be spoon fed. And I'm spoon feeding as much as I possibly can for people. I have conversations with a lot of large institutions, with institutional players. We talked to Ripple last week, and it's not just one conversation with these people, and they have NDAs themselves. So they just say little snippets here and there, and we've been able to put it together. The domino theory and a lot of the things I've discussed on this channel. So if somebody needs by time the banks tell you that they're using it and you can call them and ask them, it's going to be too late for you to make money on it. So if you want to buy it at $1,000 a piece after they're using it, then you can wait, or you can buy it at $1 or whatever it is today. Not financial advice. Can't give you financial advice, but that's my 2 cents on your friend. The second follow-up here says he thinks the XRP token has no value. Banks will just use Ripple payment without XRP ledger. Can you clarify? So he's a Bitcoin maxi. Okay, well, that's fine. If the without XRP being successful, Bitcoin will go away. So I'll say that. Anyway, they can use Ripple's technology for fiat payments with the option to settle through a digital asset. So as soon as there's clarity, it's faster and cheaper to settle through a digital asset versus the other rails that are traditional. So if it's faster and cheaper and there's regs, they're going to go that direction. They've already been trialing it. So if he's a Bitcoin guy, he's going to know that XRP was the second ever digital asset that was created, June 2nd of 2012. A lot of the people that were involved with Bitcoin early on are also proponents of XRP and that network. the XRPL versus Bitcoin's network. Some could say, it's a Bitcoin 2.0. So, I don't know what happens to Bitcoin. I think that when Tether does have problems, which it's going to, there's going to be implications for Bitcoin. I don't know what those are going to look like. It's not going to be pretty if that happens. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Tether FUD. It's been, Tether's been around since 2014 and it's been 10 years and nothing's ever happened. There's a ripcord on this deal. When they want to roll out regs, they cause problems. Okay. You had Luna, right? You had FTX, you had Voyager, you had Celsius. All those people were meeting with Gensler. Okay. Those things still happened. Like I mentioned before, you've got options coming out Wednesday this week. Why haven't options been a thing for people to be able to hedge against their position in Bitcoin this whole time? It doesn't make any sense. So we'll see what shakes out. I would love to be wrong on Bitcoin. Like I said, I was wrong about $75,000 being $75,000 being the top. I first wanted to say that. I didn't think that they were going to need more liquidity in it than in that to be able to roll that into XRP when the time came. But they did, and they've pushed it all the way up to, what are we at? 91,000 right now, with a high of 93,000. So does it go higher from here? Quite possible. When Tether happens, whenever that happens, that's going to be the problem for Bitcoin. We've got Liner says, hope you and the family are well. Thank you. What are your thoughts on the use of Constellation DAG over the long term? Well, I like DAG as an acronym. DAG is interesting. So you got different types. So DAG is not a blockchain. It is an acyclic graph. And that works a little bit different for speed and security versus a blockchain. I think that Holochain and Hedera Hashgraph all have different applications and use cases depending on what strengths and weaknesses you're looking for, throughput or security. I think there's probably some applications that'll get built out on DAG, bullish on the long term for it. I don't know what those end up being, but just like Cardano, I think it's good technology. I just think it needs to find its niche. And so if you have some insight there, what is being built on the network, some companies that are using that technology to, solve a real world problem, I would love to hear them here in the chat if you have them. But again, good technology. I just don't know what it's going to be used for. RJB says, I think XRP goes back around $1.20 around midnight. I think tonight could be really fun for people. There's been a couple, we'll see. I take everything with a grain of salt, but David Schwartz and we got Charles Hoskinson and a few other people talking about midnight tonight. I don't know if it's tonight, but they said midnight in like multiple posts. There's been multiple people. So does anything happen tonight? Maybe, maybe not. I have no clue, but it'd be interesting if it did. And for you to point that out is interesting as well. Let's see here. I had to step away. Not sure if you... Yeah, I didn't see that Gary officially stepped down today. I didn't see anything come out about that. There was a lot of hearsay and conjecture, but it doesn't look like that actually ever came to fruition. Or maybe it'll come out tomorrow that he stepped down today. There just wasn't an announcement. But again, Trump was supposedly meeting with Brian Brooks. That's indicative to me that he's looking for a spot for him in government. Why else would he be meeting with him? The SEC chair makes a lot of sense to me. And again, multiple people have put him forth as a candidate for that position. So Daniel Trent says, greetings, Jake and the fam. Hey, brother. Appreciate you. Those 10 steps that you presented in today's earlier video is all that you and your team provide, making a one-stop shop provider for all those needs that you outlined, right? Yeah. Shameless plug. And it's not that way, though. So I'll just say this. I didn't know what to do in 21 when I came into a good chunk of change in crypto. I had to figure that out, right? And so I reached out to people. I've aligned myself with the best professionals that exist in digital assets. We've sought them out over time. We've continued to push the boundaries and kind of educate other professionals on those things. Had a call earlier today with an accounting firm that we had to explain how an LLC works and how you transfer it in there and it doesn't adjust your cost basis. Stuff that I would think that they would know, but they didn't. So yeah, we try to make sure that we have every single piece end to end for anything that anybody would want if they made a bunch of money in crypto, as a one-stop shop for that, because again, it didn't exist when that happened for me. And so I just see an opportunity, and we wanted to provide that for other people to make it super easy for them. And really, like, you don't even have to use Digital Ascension Group or Digital Family Office. I just want people to have an idea of what they need to do so that they can do it themselves or seek out the right people on the other side of it. We're going to have a ton of volume. We have a ton of clients already. We want to make sure that we're able to scale and take care of those people. But I always like to provide all three. In any offering that we have, we want to be able to educate people so that they can do it themselves, because some people are self-starters and they handle it themselves. Some people want done with you, like hold my hand and help me along the path, and then other people want done for you where they don't have to touch it. Here, it's easier to just hand it to you. You guys take care of it. I know that it's done right. So we want to provide all three for people. And so the video earlier today was really the first one. There's going to be people that go, okay, I know what to do now. I can do these things. I can Google, Family Compass Charter. I can find examples. I can put that together for myself. Maybe, I seek out an estate planner and somebody that's proficient with taxes around digital assets to have the conversation when I cash out or before I cash out, so I can make sure I'm doing the right thing for me and my family, and it's in alignment with my North Star, my long-term goals. Anyway, I wanted to put that together because I feel like price appreciation is fairly imminent here. We're in the middle of what started to be a really good bull run. And if we do see some utility of these assets, I think things could escalate very quickly, and people would be in a position where they're like, looking around like, wow, I'm looking at my portfolio and I can't believe my eyes. What do I do now? Well, now you kind of have a guide for that. So thank you for bringing it up. And anyway, that's how I'm in it and why we put it together. Chris88, he says, do you still think XRP is a good buy at a current price, or do you expect a retrace in the token? I'll put it this way. Let's pull it back. It's 2010. It's 2011. Bitcoin goes from 50 cents to $1. Was Bitcoin a good buy at 50 cents to $1? Yeah, I think everybody would look back at that and go, yeah. So did it retrace? Sure, maybe it pulled back to 90 cents. Was it still a good buy at $1? Yeah. So that's how I look at this. Dollar cost average. If something's going to 100, 500, 1,000, $10,000 within the next few years, cents aren't going to matter a whole lot at that point. Sure, you could pick up some more if we saw a retrace. You've had 3.5 years to pick it up at 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents, 60 cents, 70 cents, up to $1 and back again multiple times. I don't think we're going to get those chances anymore. I think we're off from here. Personally, I could be wrong, been wrong about other things. I don't have a crystal ball. That's my 2 cents. And I don't get anything if you buy it or not. I'm buying here is, I guess, my answer. Corb says, yo, Jake, based off your previous price predictions, do you think XRP is still on track? Yes, I do. Also, do you think the private and public ledgers will merge so that there's liquidity to buy your XRP at 5 digits? I don't know if I have the liquidity to buy your XRP at 5 digits. I do think that the private and public ledgers will merge if there's enough liquidity inside of XRP to be able to settle the transactions that are already running in tandem in those circumstances. So that part, yes. I'm unclear on what you mean by buy your XRP at 5 digits. If there's enough liquidity that they merge, I kind of segment those two things away from one another. I do think that there will be institutions that are willing to pay that if that is the market price, and maybe even pay a premium kind of like gold, spot price of gold, versus, what you have to actually pay to get the real gold. I think there may be a circumstance around XRP that's similar. So we'll see. If depends on how much demand there is and how much liquidity there is on secondary market trading for XRP and exchanges. We've got over here on TikTok. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. Rob Lowland says, good luck finding professionals that know what they're doing when it comes to crypto. There aren't very many. There's very few. And even the ones that say they do know what they're doing, not to toot my own horn, I don't think I'm anything special. I just spend a lot of time on this stuff, and we've worked with a lot of people that are really good. And so by proxy, I've been able to learn a lot of those things. So when we meet new professionals like this accounting firm earlier today and ask us a question around taxes, and they're supposed to be a CPA from prominent place, and they tell me that there's a tax implication for moving it into an LLC, and I tell them exactly how to do it without any tax implications, just lets me know that there really aren't that many people, to your point, that actually know what they're talking about on this stuff, and they just make assumptions. So anyway, again, we have resources. Some people we're happy to just make recommendations for. If you're in the Mastermind group, we pass people's information out there. We don't get affiliate agreements for people. I just want to make sure people have good quality people to deal with on the other side of price appreciation. If you use our full scope of services, obviously we're compensated for that. But if it's just one-off things here and there, like I need a CPA, I need an estate planner, I need somebody for wealth management, I need this or that, we'll just make intros, and hopefully that helps people out. I love when people ask this question. This is probably one of my favorite questions. This person says, when will XRP get to $589? When Shane Ellis's theory pans out. Okay, so if Tether freezes, there's a liquidity crisis, and exchanges need XRP, they will drive the price to that. I think that theory is actually very accurate for how things could actually transpire. Go ahead and get back over here to the questions on the YouTube. Appreciate you guys for hanging out again. Again, I don't say it enough on my lives. They've given me, my team is telling me, tell people to press the like button, share, subscribe, do all those things. So if you're getting value here, please do that. CJ, you're the best. I just want to help people, brother. Appreciate you being here and the kind words. If XRP divides down to drops, is there another measurement, such as a drip or ripple, that could require more coins like fiat traditional money, or not needed? So there's 7, well, you can go all the way down to 1/10 of a drop. So there's really 8 decimal places for XRP. And in that circumstance, you could have $1 million XRP and you could get all the way back down to like a penny, because there's that many decimal places in the code, if you were willing to go down to 1/10 of a drop. So I don't see a circumstance in which you would need a division of a drop. Maybe you could call 1/10 of a drop a drip or a ripple. I think I would just call it 1/10 of a drop. Like a sat, people use sats for Satoshis, for Bitcoin. Stacking sats, stacking drops is how I think it's going to be for XRP, especially once we see full scale adoption. I think that, I've said this before and people give me hell about it, and that's okay. Again, happy to say when I'm wrong, when I am, but I do think that global trade at some point in the next decade will be priced in drops and not dollars. Bold statement, I know. Carl, appreciate you putting this in the chat here. He says, go check out the Beyond Broke Mastermind for educational material and like-minded community. Love having you in there. What Carl didn't mention here, and he's always modest, he actually put together the insurance policy that we have for Mastermind members. So we have community insurance for people there. So if you are older in age, or you are an entrepreneur, or you just want to save on your insurance from your employer, because a lot of times the health share plan that we have there is actually better suited for people, especially if you're young and healthy, versus what you're getting at your employer. We actually save people a lot of money on their health insurance that come into the group. So I don't think I've ever talked about that on a live before, but we do have health insurance for our mastermind members if that's something that they need or want, aside from private deals, the education, the mastermind meetups, other discounts on products, access to resources and professionals. Just we try to provide as much value as we possibly can there in that group. I've paid thousands of dollars to be parts of masterminds that didn't have anywhere near the value that we provide there, and we do that. Carbon One's $100 a month, make it super affordable for people. And again, he didn't say this, but I will. If you want to go check out the community for 1 month for free, see if it's something that you're interested in, is on Discord. So if you have a hard time with Discord, just a fair warning. We're working on stuff for the website to make it a little bit more accessible for people that just want to access it there versus Discord. But in the meantime, that's where it's at. And so you can go check it out. The code at checkout, if you want to go to mastermind.beyondbroke.com, is beyondbroke, all capitalized, 1MO, all capitalized letters. And that is the code, and you get 1 month free. Check it out. If you don't like it, cancel. On the other side of price appreciation, I'll say this though, and like I said, I don't think we're that far from that. At a $10 XRP, we're cutting off membership for 30 days, and we're going to completely revamp that process. We're going to be very particular about who we allow into the group. Background check, credit. I don't know if we'll do a credit check, but kind of colonoscopy. We're going to get intimate. We're going to know who's getting into the group because we want to protect the community there. We feel like we're going to have a lot of people that are high net worth individuals, and just want to make sure that we're taking care of the people that take care of us. So, and we are going to raise the prices 10x from where they currently sit. So if you want to be locked in at the current values, I would suggest getting in there, try the free month, and banned for not bouncing. Oh, geez. Interesting. It was a weird, sorry. Just trying to make sure that we, like I said, provide as much value as we can for people, and we are going to lock it out at $10 XRP and raise prices and make sure that we're qualifying people to be a part of that community on the other side of it. So Laurit has asked about thoughts on infinite banking. Appreciate you being here, brother. He says, so people talk about infinite banking using life insurance policies for that purpose. I think of infinite banking as something that you can draw against that pays itself off upon your death, and the assets or the underlying assets of what's in the policy gets passed to your beneficiaries. So you can draw down credit against it, and when you pass away, the cash value of the policy pays off the loan, and you don't have to worry about it. You can do that with PPLI, which we provide for our clients through our Wealth Farm at Digital Ascension Group, and structured, managed by an RIA, and meets the diversification standards that are required for that. Minimums there are going to be $5 million just to open a policy, and you can fund it with digital assets. So XRP, say it goes to $100 million, and it's more than you can gift into a trust, and you want to set that up and make sure that the beneficiary of the life insurance policy is the trust, and you want to be able to borrow against it over your lifetime and live a wonderful life and take that money tax-free. We can do all those things. And that really is the magic of infinite banking. You're able to borrow against the cash value of the life insurance policy. And as it continues to appreciate because it's invested in assets that are going to go up in value over time, you can continue to refinance that, with more and more equity in the policy or cash value in the policy. And you never even have to pay it back. And upon your death, it pays it back itself, which sounds crazy, but that's actually how it works. And a lot of people do that with whole life insurance or IULs. We do it with PPLI and private placement life insurance because we want to protect the assets themselves, the digital assets, and we don't want to have to sell them, which is what other people are going to require that you do to set up an IUL. You're going to have to cash out your digital assets and then fund the policy with cash. Same thing for variable life or whole life. Going to have to fund it with cash. With PPLI, you can use the assets themselves. Don't ever have to lose exposure. and they're in the policy, they grow for forever, and they get passed back to your family on, when you do. Everybody has a time that comes, and everything gets protected that way. So nobody else I know, we've never run across any. There's been a few people that are like deal with family offices that have done it with Bitcoin and ETH. We're the only people that have ever done it with XRP, as far as I'm aware. Let's see here. Gabe Boyd. He says, just submitted the LLC information yesterday. What? Good job, brother. Looking forward to working with DWP. Great videos. Appreciate you. Man, yeah. So Lloyd has gone ahead and been very proactive and set up an LLC for his digital assets. I've talked about this lots of times before, but I'll kind of give you a high level of why that matters. So moving your assets into an LLC, if you do want to take profit, benefits you in huge ways. You're able to buy things and use those profits in a way that you can write them off a lot of times. You also can point to that and increase your basis. So because of the 1099 DA that the IRS has put forth for the last quarter here, let's say you mined some Bitcoin, and this is an actual thing that happened. We had somebody come to us. They had mined Bitcoin back in 2011 and 12. Didn't really have a cost basis for that. And so they used that Bitcoin, moved it into an LLC here recently at the current prices, and then they took some profit. And they were able to really mitigate a huge portion of those capital gains that they would have been subject to otherwise by doing that. And so anyway, super great way to change and increase your cost basis. If you want to go check out that form, it's on Clinton Donnelly's website. I think I have a video here on the channel. It's called, it was my last interview with Clinton Donnelly. Talked about the 1099 DA, where you can change the basis on your digital assets. It can't be like my XRP is worth $1,000 because it's never been $1,000, but you can point to whenever you moved it into the LLC. So if you bought your XRP at pennies on the dollar, half a penny back in 2017, you've seen some appreciation, you just held, you can move it into an LLC right now, and your new cost basis would be $1. And you could point to that, and that would satisfy the IRS's rule, and you wouldn't have to worry about the capital gains on that, other portion that you already had that it went up. So aside from that, with the LLC, you do have the ability to set up PPLI and, again, fund a life insurance policy as a key employee, which you're able to write off. Crazy. So if you do want to take some profit, you want to offset those tax implications, you can fund a life insurance policy to protect your assets with it and actually just write that off as a portion of cost in doing business against the profits that you took, which is crazy. Section 179 of the tax code, you can buy heavy equipment over 6,000 pounds. A vehicle qualifies. You're still going to need a vehicle that is your driver for your family. But if you do purchase another vehicle, say a truck or an SUV, you see the soccer moms driving around in Porsches, the SUV Porsche or the Ferrari Porsche, sorry, not the Ferrari Porsche. Geez, it's late. The Ferrari SUV, they're $200,000. G-Wagon's another popular one. You get to write off. It's 60% right now, but now that Trump's back in, I think he's going to move that back to 100% depreciation the first year. So let's say you put, get the G-Wagon, you put 40 grand down, it's $200,000. You get to write off the full $200,000 the first year against your income, which is a huge savings on your taxes. And then our estate planners and tax professionals crush it. They will make sure, I can't say that you won't pay any taxes ever, but they do a really good job to make sure that they're looking out for you, especially if you're proactive like this time of year. If you come to them in October, November, December, and you kind of have an idea of what your total is going to be for the year, they can really knock it out of the park and basically get you money back on your taxes or carry forward losses. So anyway, LLC allows for that. It allows you flexibility. Another thing that an LLC does, again, on the other side of price appreciation, if you are above the gift tax threshold, you could get a valuation done on the LLC, and you could gift a small portion of that LLC to people that you want to take care of anyway, family members, close friends or relatives. And in doing so, you could really reduce the value of the LLC because now there's minority owners on the cap table. So let's say you had $100 million in assets in the LLC. You can reduce the actual valuation of the LLC by about 30% in doing that. And so now it'd be $70 million. You could get a lot more of the asset into the trust on the other side of that and into the insurance policy. So love that. Appreciate you setting up the LLC and being proactive. If you want to go check out, I think we have it for $1,500, and I'll give you guys the code here. So it's listed for $3,000 on the website. If you go to digitalfamilyoffice.io, there's services, drop down, click the LLC button. If you want to put in 50 off DAG LLC, all capitalized, that'll get you 50% off of the LLC there for $1,500. And if you're part of the mastermind, you can get the code in there. Want to make sure that we're taking care of those people. I normally don't say that on the live, so don't tell anybody. But if you're looking to get it done, you want to get it done a little cheaper, that's the way to do it. Let's see what we got over here on the TikToks. Why is Hex or Pulse Chain up 500%? Man, I stay far away from Hex. The guy that runs that deal, sketching me out. Maybe it turns into something, maybe it's not. I don't know enough about it. I haven't done enough research. I've been turned off by the guy that started it, and so I have no clue why it's up 500%. It's likely going to be speculation. Mike Anthony says Ponzi scheme. I'm not going to say that because, again, I haven't done enough research to be educated on it, but that's kind of how it seems. So we'll see. Another user over here says paid $300K in taxes. Why are you doing that? You email us info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. We'll connect you with our tax professionals and make sure that you're able to mitigate. I'm not saying, look, people should pay their fair share, right? But if you can put that capital to work in effective ways and give back to your community better than the government can, I'm a proponent of that. Libertarian. Rivers Fountains says, Jake, XRP Veil says that an XRP ETF would make XRP a security. I'd like to know your thoughts. My face is my thoughts on that. There are commodities that have ETFs on top of them. There's currencies that have ETFs on top of them. There's securities that have ETFs on top of them. The ETF is a security. It's a securities offering. But the underlying assets itself is not a security or doesn't have to be a security. So it sounds like Vail or Val or whoever it is doesn't really understand financial markets. Or maybe he just misspoke. That could happen too. But the ETF is for sure a security. The underlying asset itself does not have to be a security. Again, there's ETFs on commodities, currencies, and other things as well. There's a gold ETF. Gold is a commodity. Rob, he says, Jake, what's going on, Rob? Can you speak to where we are with the domino theory and the fiat leak added to more countries, New Zealand and Singapore? Ooh, I have not looked at fiat leak here recently, but that's good to know. Looks like XRP is on the move a little bit right now. We're close. We're very close to the domino theory. I'm still watching the yen. Where are we at on the yen? I can pull it up here and tell you guys. We're 154. So what does that mean? I'm looking at the 155 level for the yen. We did peak over that just a few days ago and went up to close to 156. But the BOJ, Bank of Japan, they're going to need to squash that down. And the way that they're going to do that, if the yen depreciates against the dollar rapidly, is what they did before, which was raise interest rates. And we've just lowered interest rates on our side. So that's really going to squeeze people on the reverse carry trade. That is the impact of Japan and what they're going to have. And that's trillions. Like, I can't impress upon you the amount of liquidity that's been borrowed against the yen and then put to work in our stock market and treasuries. Trillions, tens of trillions of dollars that would be liquidated from all of those positions all at once, that would rush back into the dollar and then over to yen, converted to be able to pay back those loans when they get squeezed. And it's really a 2% margin there, and we're very close to that. So as soon as we see Japan raise rates again, and I don't know if that's going to be a catalyst because oil in their country goes up in cost, if there's a conflict in the Middle East that arises, I think that's less likely now that Trump's back in office. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but whatever it's going to be, it's going to move quickly. The Bank of Japan is going to have to act, and when they do, you're going to have the dominoes just run down. Man, we're over the 1% yield on their 10-year Treasury in Japan. If we go a whole lot higher than where we're currently at, you're going to start seeing those dominoes fall. So I'm confident that it happens before the end of the year here, maybe in the next week potentially. Just depends on how fast things kind of unfold. Casey says XRPville stands strongly that no, there's already an ETP in Europe on XRP. I don't know what this person or who this person is, or again, there are multiple companies that have already filed S1s with the SEC for XRP. Again, the ETF itself is a security, but the underlying asset doesn't have to be. So I would encourage Val to do a little bit more research before he puts out wrong statements. Crypto Knight says banks are overleveraged by trillions. I would agree with that. Derivatives, man, the exposure to derivatives is absolutely absurd by banks. Let's see here. We have Defin. He says, Jake, what are your thoughts? He means thoughts on exchanges already running low on XRP. And Brito and Chris borrowing their XRP to support possible XRP squeeze. There's going to be a supply shock and a demand shock at the same time. And when you have that, that's when you see things really pop off and things start to move. And some of these prices that I've been talking about happening. I had a gentleman earlier today, client, good friend actually, talk to me about market cap. He said, you realize if XRP goes to the prices you're talking about, it's like a $6 trillion, $10 trillion market cap. And I'm like, yep, I'm well aware. And market cap it's going to be difficult for people to fathom and understand what's going on when you see those type of prices for XRP. It's not something that's ever existed before. The way that you value these digital assets is going to be in liquidity. I think that they're going to come up with a new measurement aside from market cap. Market cap's really good for publicly traded companies because those shares are liquid, those shares are allocated, and people are trading them at that price, right, in a very public market. Market cap in cryptos just doesn't sit well with me, and I'll tell you why. I launch a token, okay? I mint 100 billion of the token. It's the same as XRP. I launch another XRP, okay? Same code, everything. I don't have any partnerships. I don't have a company behind it. I don't have people using it. I don't have nodes on the network. There's a lot of things that I don't have, but to just entertain me, okay? I launch a $100 billion token, and I get my mom, and I get it listed on some exchanges. I get it listed on Binance somehow or on some obscure exchange, and I get my mom to buy it for $1, okay? What's my market cap of the token? You can do the math. 100 billion, bought it for $1. One person bought it for $1. My market cap's 100 billion. So that's why it doesn't make sense for crypto. It makes sense for publicly traded companies. There's an IPO. The stock is allocated. The investment banks already have allocations. They trade it in a public market. People hold it. You're buying shares in a company. Market cap makes sense. For crypto, I think there's going to be a different metric aside from market cap that's going to be brought forth. It's going to be like a liquidity index. And I think that that's going to be more indicative of what an actual value and how you would actually value these assets versus a publicly traded stock. But anyway, I'm way off over here again, squirrel on the tangent. But yeah, I think that there's a supply shock coming in for XRP. Exchanges are getting low. So let's see here. We've got Crypto Insights crushing it over here on TikTok. Shane Olaf's theory. Absolutely, brother. John Jonathan Blazer says, any updates on PolySign? Any hope for the IP still has value? So we talked to Jack at Swell. I don't know what I can or can't say here. Based on that conversation, some of the IP may have been sold. We talked about a portion of the IP while I was there that we may look at purchasing depending on things. But a portion may be sold, not the portion that we wanted to buy. And they still have Ripple shares. So that's the other thing with PolySign. Like, I know nobody works there. I know that, the long-term vision for what they had and the underlying companies that they were using to facilitate the vision has dissipated and been dismantled. They haven't dissolved the entity. Jack technically still is the only employee over there, but they do still have a large allocation to Ripple that they got in the acquisition of Standard Custody. Those shares are at $61, the tender offer price. However, they do have, it's a pretty good chunk of change that they got in Ripple shares. So if that's the case, and we saw a large IPO or direct listing or public listing for Ripple, and they were to liquidate those shares at that point, I think that there's still a chance that people could at least get their money back on that deal. Are you going to make money on it? You'd have to have a really big IPO or public listing for Ripple. Like, it would need to be like $1,000 and you might make some money on it. The people that have their money invested in Link2, which is us, we did a deal through the Mastermind and went through Link2 because we trusted them. We don't own that equity. So we're really like last in line. Anybody that has shares on Link2 is really last in line to get paid back or get paid out if there is some type of liquidity event or they dissolve the entity and wind down PolySign. But I'm still holding out hope. I don't think it's a complete loss that you should completely write off yet. I don't think it'll make money, but I think there is a opportunity and possibility that you will get your money back if you invested in it. And that's how a private investment goes. Sometimes things seem like a sure deal. I'm upset that we offered that to our community and it worked out the way that it did. We literally have still accounts at Standard Custody that we're migrating over to Anchorage now, right? And they're still supporting that. It's not like they've gone away. People at Ripple have been great in the transition. Sometimes things don't work out the way that you think that they're going to. And you learn lessons in private investing. I would rather people learn it now. If you did have 5 or 10 grand invested in PolySign, or maybe a little bit more than that, and you lose it, God forbid that it does just end up being a nothing burger. I don't know. I'm not saying that it's great that you lost that money. I'm just saying that's a really cheap way to learn that lesson, because on the other side of price appreciation, people are going to be making bets as angel investors. It's going to be their first time getting in on companies. You're going to want to do due diligence. You're going to want to understand how to value a company. You're going to want to be able to, if you're investing directly on people's cap table, be able to negotiate deals. Venture Deals, if you guys haven't read that book, highly recommend going to check that out, reading that. It's on Audible. Adam Coffey has other stuff around private equity deals. There's a lot of books out there that they're really good educational pieces on those subjects. And if you are going to be making investments in private companies, I would highly recommend being well studied and educated on the topic before you venture down that road. Or, again, work with a financial advisor or somebody else that is an expert there that can make an allocation and pay them well to do it. Let's see here. Freedom Fighter says it makes sense, but not when the supply is mostly held by insiders and VCs. For XRP, insiders and VCs. Are you talking about Ethereum? Sorry, cheap shot. Look, the founders only kept 20% of the XRP. You've got Jed McCaleb that sold off all of his. Brad and Chris still do have large allocation. A portion of Chris's was stolen. Brad probably still holds the most XRP of anybody. They're providing liquidity to exchanges. There's a few wallets that you can see that are unnamed that are doing that. You can see who they're funded by. Like, that's the thing, is you can go all the way back. The origin of the ledger you can't see, which is also interesting to me. You can't run a full history node on the XRPL. There's like a first portion of the transactions that you can't see. I think that's on purpose. Because if you knew who was involved from the jump, you would be buying it. There are a few wallets out there like Musk and some other ones that are interesting. It's banks. It's not retail. Retail might hold, I don't know, somewhere between 1 and 2 billion XRP. Like, that's it. That's all that retail has an allocation to. And so if you're lucky enough to be a retail investor to have some of the XRP, like, and you want the investment banks, you want the enterprises, you want the large corporations to be holding a lot of XRP, because they're going to want it to be successful, and you're going to be successful just as a tag along in that process, right? So anyway, I don't balk at that. I'm sure that there are, again, employees and other people at Ripple that'll make a lot of money. But I'm happy to make money alongside them. That's all I'm saying. Hazy Days says, with the great news on BTC and the price hitting, I saw 93K. You saw 94K? Awesome. Does this change your prediction on BTC? I still think that there's going to be a massive pullback in BTC when Tether happens. I hope I'm wrong. I was wrong about 75K. I was happy to be wrong about 75K. Believe me, I have clients that hold significant allocations to BTC, and I was pumped when it blew on past that. I was like, God, kind of like a sigh of relief. But Tether, just every time they mint more Tether, you see Bitcoin go up in value. There's a correlation there. It's not by chance. It's not by coincidence. And when Tether does have problems, which it's going to cause problems for Bitcoin also. And so, no, my prediction hasn't really changed. I was wrong about the top, but the actual ending, or what it's going to look like here in the short term when Tether has issues, I know I'm not wrong about. Let's see here. Yeah. Roger, see, he's talking about it here. What I mentioned earlier, thoughts on Charles and David going back and forth about midnight. Maybe it's time. Like I said, it's very interesting that the options go live Wednesday, and the OCC just approved them today, and those haven't been available for people to be able to hedge against Bitcoin and the ETFs and their spot ETFs and their allocations. Huge institutions, pension funds, governments, a lot of people have significant allocations to the Bitcoin ETFs at this point. They've seen a lot of upside. Was on the phone with a gentleman earlier today who got in early on in the Bitcoin ETF. And we talked last week, and I can't give people financial advice. I can just talk about what I'm doing. He ended up selling last week on Friday. It's good for him. I think that's going to work out really well for him. But again, would love to be wrong. Would love for it to go higher for the people that do hold it. Just don't know if that's going to happen. And if we get Tether tomorrow and they don't have the options in place, bad news bears on that one, man. Carl, was good seeing you in Houston. Good seeing you too, man. I planned on circling back with you. Next thing I knew, it was time to take our seats. Talked with Jonathan a lot. Super good guy. I'm glad you got to talk with Jonathan. Jonathan is fantastic. He's been here from the jump. He was the co-signer on all the standard custody accounts when we originally set those up. Him and Max Avery have been rock steady from Max even before Jonathan, but Jonathan on the family office side and the wealth management from the beginning. So just blessed to have those guys on our team, and glad you got to get to know him a little bit. If there's anything we can do for you, just reach out. You can email him, Jonathan@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and he can walk you through anything I can, and probably even better. Let's see here. Atlantic Living, you must be in Canada. He says, or she, does Aaron Grinhaus help set up trusts for Canadians? Would this defer capital gains? Aaron does do estate planning and mitigate taxes for Canadians, and knows the tax laws there and the U.S. like the back of his hand for digital assets. He's fantastic. I've done interviews here on the channel with him, brought him into the Mastermind, and he's had conversations there. Yes, is the answer to both of your questions. So if you want to reach out to him, I think his information's on that video, but I think it's Aaron at greenhosslaw.com is his, or .ca is his email. Is there an explanation for the order book on the XRP ledger not matching price for sell orders to active? Is there another way to set a sell order? What is the best advice on where to set sell orders? We do that for our clients through Anchorage. No spread, 20 basis points is all we charge. Super low, super low. Caleb and Brown would be my recommendation out of anybody. If you just, want to work with a broker and set sell order prices or limit orders, they do a great job over there. And that would be my recommendation if you're looking for a broker and a liquidity provider and somebody that can get you the best price. They're my answer. XRP Junkie says, hey, Jake, how feasible is Trump's plan of no capital gains tax on profits made from selling tokens issued by US-based companies? I think that is a fantastic idea. And Stellar and Ripple, XRP and XLM, and Hedera Hashgraph would all bode really well. I think you would see a huge influx of people investing in those assets and using them and driving the value proposition for those networks if you didn't have capital gains for selling the assets. People say, oh, well, that kind of invalidates a lot of the stuff that you've done. Not really. You're still mitigating risk and protecting your assets with the estate planning and all of that. Just the considerations around tax might be a little bit different. I still don't want to sell the asset because I believe in the long-term utility and price appreciation. So I'm still going to be borrowing against it, which is also tax-free. If you're liquidating it, you're not going to incur the taxes, right? If you're moving it out of your name into an estate, still got to deal with the gift tax. So just because there's no capital gains on it doesn't really invalidate a lot of the stuff that we've set up. But I'm actually really hopeful for that because then you don't have to say you wanted to sell it to pay off your house. Okay. There's a lot of people we deal with that want to do that. They have a house payment. It weighs on them for whatever reason, even if it's at 2.85%, 3%, which I think is free money. But other people, it affects their quality of life. And so for them, it means, a lot. And if they had to pay 20% tax and then, pay it off and then you have to give that up, if you don't have capital gains, you don't got to worry about that. So, anyway, really hopeful that actually does happen. Like I said, I think it really would drive adoption of specific assets here in the U.S. Where are we at over here on TikTok? Am I missing any questions here? Los Sway says, if we use your organization, do we keep custody of our crypto? So you are a signer on the account. So let me explain qualified custody for those that may not know what that is. We work with Anchorage. Nobody gets your keys. So the keys are programmatically on the back end. Nobody ever sees them. They're sharded and they're held across HSMs or hardware security modules in level 4 facilities, making it I can't say impossible because my team won't let me and our legal won't let me, but basically for quantum computers or anybody else to hack it, that's why there's crime insurance on it. If we're managing the assets, we're a countersigner. We just do what you say. Like if you want to move your assets, we say cool and sign. Not a problem for us. If you have a trustee, they would also be a signer on there. And this actually fixes a problem that exists before we came along and provided the solution. If you had a distribution trustee and your assets were in there, you'd write your keys down on a piece of paper and cut it in half and give them half the paper. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So they're still your keys. You're still in control. You are a signer on there. You just have multiple signers, which makes it even more secure and unlikely that your assets are going to be taken. And again, Aganape says, is this the same as trusted custody? Qualified custody. So there's a few different providers here in the US that do this. Standard custody was who we worked with before. They have a very similar protocol on the back end for storing the keys with the encryption and the sharding. Kraken has just now launched institutional custody. BNY Mellon uses Fireblocks for theirs, and they have a derivative of that. You've got Goldman, Citi, Medico, which is a Ripple acquisition, and now Ripple Custody also uses something similar. And that's what I'm saying. Like, all these people are coming out and they're providing these solutions. Anybody that's holding your, like, if you're working with iTrust Capital, or Bitcoin IRA, and they use Digital Trust as their custodian. I think iTrust is moving over to Fortis. This last I heard, they were using Fortress, which is kind of sketchy. They're holding your assets on Ledger Nano, and they're putting that in the level 4 facility, and somebody walks in there and sees your keys when they're issuing the transaction, and they could fat finger and send it to the wrong place. Like, that's not a good way to be able to store assets. There's just way too much room for error. The insurance is going to be ridiculously costly on that. You need an algorithm that's doing those things, and robots, and that's just code's going to be a lot more efficient at that versus a human. And you're going to have a lot more access if that's the case on how they store things. They're going to walk in there, and they only do it once a day. So if it's 4 p.m., so let's say you wanted to trade your stuff or get it on other platform, good luck. It's going to take almost all day for that to happen. So anyway, we use almost real-time transfers for our clients, and I think it's way better. But hopefully that explains institutional custody or qualified custody for you. We are coming up here on the hour. I'll probably hang out for another 15 minutes here, and then we'll wrap it up this evening. We got Maine. They say, hi, Jake. Hello. With those keeping crypto with your company, will those keeping crypto with your company be able to loan against the value if purchasing real estate abroad as well as in the U.S.? Yeah. We haven't issued a loan in other currencies yet, but as long as they accept U.S. dollars or U.S. stablecoins, once stablecoins are more prevalent, I'm sure that you'll be able to borrow in whatever stablecoin you want, whether that's U.S. dollar denominated or euro or yen or other currencies. And we'll definitely be on the cutting edge of that and providing that service as it comes up. But right now, we're able to loan in U.S. dollars against the asset. And you have to have at least $100,000 in value to be able to do that. Let's see here. And like I said, you can take that and appropriate it or put those funds wherever you want. If it's, you want to get a golden visa in Dubai and you want to buy, $1 million property there, and you want to borrow against your XRP or whatever digital assets you have, to do that, you can do it. Angus says, thank you for your work. Cheers. Appreciate you, brother. I have had the privilege to be able to work with a lot of these players and figure things out. And I've just tried to build all the stuff that I wanted and then create a way that other people can participate in it and use it too. It's been fantastic. It's not been easy. There's been a lot of not so fun things in running a business. We got 25 employees at this point, and scaling quickly to make sure we can keep up with demand. But I wouldn't have it any other way. So thank you for the kind words. Oh man, thank you for the super chat. 00589 with a $10 super chat. Good evening, sir. Sincere question pertaining to greed after liquidity event. This is serious, okay? If my brother forms a multi-member LLC with myself as the only other member, does this protect his assets from a greedy wife? Most of the time you have spousal rights. So she's going to have spousal rights to whatever percentage of the partnership that he owns. And you're going to have to deal with her if he passes away. You're going to want that in a trust if they're already married. Too bad, so sad. She would have to sign off on whatever trust it was when the assets were moved in there, that she didn't have any rights to it. You're going to want a post-nuptial agreement, which is a lot harder to get people to sign and deal with. That would be the only way that you could mitigate her ability to get to the assets on the other side of price appreciation or inside of an LLC or even a trust, because they are legally married and they are, spouse. Most states have really strong spousal rights. We recommend that most people set up a single member LLC for one of their spouses, You don't have, any problems for taxes when you do it that way. If you do a multi-member LLC, that can trigger a taxable event for the assets if they've appreciated since you bought them. So just want to be aware of that. If you're setting things up, we send people the single member operating agreement, and that's what they set up. And most of the time it's, like you said, you can set up a family limited partnership. And if you do it that way, you can get out of the tax implications because it is your brother that you're mentioning here. It's not just somebody else. It's a partnership. So I would look into that and see if you want to go that route. But again, she's going to have rights to whatever portion of the LLC that he owns. So if you want to give him 1% and then have some type of bonus structure that's paid to him, and you can have provisions in there that it's not paid to his beneficiaries. If he were to become deceased, that it all goes to you. I would get an attorney to draft all that up and put it in place. And again, the most effective tool for this, if she's willing to sign it, is a post-nuptial agreement. So again, thank you for the super chat. Hopefully that's valuable for you. Appreciate people asking really good questions like that. And I'm sure you're not alone in that situation, and other people have that question as well. XRP Nick, he says, hey, Jake, I inquired about setting up an LLC with you guys, but the guy couldn't answer the question. Is it possible to get everything lined up and have the LLC go live in 2025? I don't want increase in price. No. There's no way to like pre-file an LLC. It's either filed or not filed. And I'm not sure why you want to wait for it to go live in 2025, unless it's like for tax purposes. You know what? I think you emailed me this, and I think that was your purpose. Like you didn't want the year end. You wanted it to do after the year. So you can actually choose in the operating agreement when your fiscal year ends. Okay. So you could make your fiscal year end in September or yesterday, whatever day you want when you set your LLC up. And that's when your fiscal year ends. There's no rule that says it has to be December 31st. And there's actually a way that you can, and this is probably what we're going to do here for a lot of people. We're coming down to the end of the year here. We see some price appreciation. People want to take profits. If you did set your LLC up and you set the annual, fiscal year up as December 31st, every 10 years, you can only do it once. Every 10 years, you can file a form with the IRS that changes your fiscal year for your entity. Okay. And so what we would do is before you sold, we would file that form and we would make your fiscal year end the day before we filed it. And then you sell your assets. And now you have the next 12 months that you can go ahead and do whatever you need to be able to mitigate those taxes. So just a little handy trick. Again, our CPAs know the tax code like the back of your hand. And we have little tips and tricks like that to be able to make sure that even if people do take profits late in the year here, that we have tools available to be made, make sure that they can work the system, because that's what it is. There's rules, playing within the rules, using the rules to our benefit and not theirs. And so if that's your reasoning, again, you can just set the fiscal year whenever you want it. You could set it for November 1st, and then you've got the next 12 months. If that is your concern here about price appreciation toward the end of the year and wanting to wait till 2025 to go ahead and get that done. Eric says, got a question on how you're so jacked. Steroids. No. I was a bodybuilder for 10 years. From the time I was really started training when I was 17. And I stopped competing at 29. Didn't miss a day of training or eating for that whole period. 6 meals a day, 300 to 600 grams of protein a day, and definitely some anabolics and other, hormones, hormone manipulating compounds were used in the production of this current physique. So, am I going to die sooner than later? Probably. Did I enlarge my organs and my heart? Probably. Am I working to mitigate those risks and like reduce size and like live longer? Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Train hard, eat a lot of food, eat your protein, and you can be big if you want to be. It literally is a science. So, let's see. Living Legacy Wi-Fi law are entitled to half of ownership. Yeah, and if you die, they get all of it. So spousal rights are pretty significant in most states. Mike Montagant says, "What's a realistic prediction for XRP?" If you get utility of it, I mean, 4 digits. You know, if it settles the back into the stock market, you could be $1,000 plus. And I know how crazy that sounds, right? Like I get that. Like I hear myself say it, I'm like, yeah, it's crazy, man. But honestly, the volume on the back end of the stock market, it's a $600 trillion market cap. That's a lot, okay? And daily volume of the stock market is somewhere between 5 and 7 trillion. If you only have a billion XRP, given to R3 in the lawsuit to be able to settle that, that's the supply, that's the demand. You can do the math. You know, you're looking at a very high price for XRP to be able to settle those transactions. So, you know, like they're talking about here, I think we're going to get a liquidity shock, especially if the ETFs get launched. Whatever is going to be left on exchanges is going to be bought up very quickly. Retail only holds about $1 billion anyway. The price for XRP, you know, again, sound crazy, but 3 to 4 digits is very reasonable if you get actual utility of the asset in the short term here. Michael Titus asks a good question. He says, does the Wyoming LLC need to be registered in my home state of Oklahoma as a foreign LLC? There are a few states where you do have to register a foreign LLC. California is one of those. I don't believe that Oklahoma is one, but I am also not an attorney. So verify that. California, we do file that. We know for sure that has to be done. New York, I believe, is the same way. Oklahoma is pretty red. So I don't think that that's a problem. But if y'all have state tax, it might be. So if it does need to be done, we do it for you. I know that for the team that we work with. Yeah, there you go. Forrest knows. Let's see here. Again, coming up to about 10:30 here, we're going to wrap it up. So I'm going to go ahead and I am way behind on, man, I'm going to hit these super chats. So anybody that does a super chat, we're going to go ahead and make sure we get your question. Thank you for the super chats. Daniel says, hey, Jake, just signed up for Digital Wealth Partners. Can I also be a part of Digital Ascension Group, as I also want to love to be a part of the family office? Yeah. So Digital Wealth Partners is the wealth management arm of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Family Office. If you're in there, then, you know, you'll definitely, you're on the contact list for the family office side of things. When your assets appreciate beyond 20 million, you will receive an email from our team talking about the ancillary services that we can provide outside of the scope of just the wealth management piece. If you are in the wealth management, you already have your assets in an LLC. That's one of the requirements. Either an LLC or trust owns the assets. We do not work with individuals. We only work with entities. And so for you to be there, it sounds like you've been proactive. You got your stuff set up, and you will definitely be able to work with, you know, Digital Ascension Group and Digital Family Office on the other side of price appreciation. Let's see here. I think I had one more super chat that I missed a little bit further up. Thank you, Kevin, for all the memberships, brother. He always gifts those, and we do appreciate it. Helps the channel grow, and don't have the dinging on here anymore, but they are very much appreciated. Let's see here. Here we go. Other super chat. Nope, the same one. Getting all the way down to the bottom. We have an HBAR ETF, also multiple of those, Canary Capital, and I think somebody else followed an HBAR ETF, and you've seen that run. I think, again, that's a domestic U.S. company that's launched crypto and digital assets. You know, the more I'm talking about that, I think Trump's going to get his way. on that, and there'll be no capital gains on U.S. based companies for digital assets. And if that's the case, again, I'm still not trying to sell it, but that's a really nice perk. And people that do want to pay off their home and they just want to liquidate to do that, or liquidate to do other things within their lifestyle, I get it. And that'll be a really nice gift for those people. But again, borrow against it. No taxes there. You do have to repay the loan unless it's in the insurance policy, which we also do. And yeah, that's the way that I'm going to be going about it. Lazy River says, "Hey Jake, thank you for pioneering this new space. Thank you for being here and being asking good questions and the support. Thoughts on where HBAR price might be in a few years and who may use it?" Man, so HBAR is interesting. HBAR's fees are fixed on their network and they're dollar denominated. They don't go up with the increase in the price of HBAR. I'm confident that HR probably, I'm confident that it becomes the backbone for all the dApps in Web3 because of Hedera Hashgraph and the way that the protocol provides security. I think that Google, and you can see the people that sit on their board also. So I'll just say that you got Boeing, Google, Dell, SoftBank, IBM. Like there's a ton of people that sit on the board of advisors for the HBAR Foundation. They're going to be using Hashgraph. Okay, like they're not going to be there and then not. So I like the way that they structured that. Price prediction, man. I would say that I am most bullish on XRP. I'm second most bullish on HBAR, like even more than XLM. I'm bullish on HBAR. What does the price go to? Your guess is as good as mine on that. I think that there's going to be a huge adoption for the network. Again, like almost if not all Web3 dApps will be built there. You've got some competition. You kind of got Internet Computer and a few other people in the space. They just don't have the big players backing them like Hashgraph does. So it's my 2 cents. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but yeah, I'm super bullish on HBAR. From B Bobo Beep. Appreciate the super chat. They say, "Hi, I have a Wyoming LLC with digital assets contributed to qualify for the safe harbor. What do I need to do? Attach the signed agreement and snapshots to the IRS." No. So you will go fill out the form 1099-DA. You can just Google it, or you can go to Clinton Donnelly's website and download it from there. And you'll be able to fill out the form and basically set the new cost basis and refer to the operating agreement and the capital contributions page there in your LLC. And you'll just file it with the IRS this year. This is a good question. Paul, I think if this is the Paul I'm thinking of, it's good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well, you and your wife. Where are we going to celebrate the bull run? Well, I was talking to Carbon 2 guy earlier today that's in the Mastermind, and we do those events for Carbon 2. We did the last one at Lake Tahoe. I was talking to him about maybe going down to the Caymans or Puerto Rico or somewhere in the Bahamas, maybe St. John's, somewhere tropical here at the end of the year. Get on, a super yacht, maybe rent a super yacht for the week, maybe go to Monaco. There's a lot of different places that I would like to go and things I would like to see and do, but away from the cold, down in the Bahamas or close to the equator somewhere would be great. And those that are in the Mastermind, you'll get the invite for that. People that are outside, stuff that we do for that group will not be publicly announced, and we will encourage people to keep it close knit and close to the chest. So, but if it's the Paul that I think it is, you get an invite, brother. You're an OG. Very few people been here as long as you. So appreciate you hopping in the chat tonight. This person says, "Hi, Jake, just signed up for the Mastermind. Awesome. Will I be locked in the other level prices once appreciation?" Yes. Yeah. So even if you got in at the social or the Carbon 1 level and, price appreciation happens, we're locking it down. Anybody that comes in after that will pay the higher prices. Everybody that's in, you're grandfathered in at the current prices that exist in the mastermind. One of my biggest core values is loyalty. And so for me, if you're here now, you made it a priority, you took action, you're supporting the group and the community and have a line interest. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that those people are taken care of and you are locked in. So we appreciate you. All right. We're at the time to wrap it up here. Let me check TikTok and make sure we don't have any others before we do. I think that is going to be it. So appreciate you guys hanging out with me on a Monday night. We do have these every Monday and Wednesday night. So tune in for that, 9 Central Standard Time. Hang out for about an hour, hour and a half. Again, if you want to check out the Mastermind, it's mastermind.beyondbroke.com. Go check it out there. You got the promo code for the free month. If you want the LLC, you got the promo code there. If you were here, you can listen back to this. If you didn't get it, you can go set up the LLC through digitalfamilyoffice.io. And if you're looking for the wealth management, institutional custody, borrow, lend, earn, all those things, you want to go check out digitalwealthpartners.net. So with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Awesome Monday. I think this is going to be one of the best weeks in crypto we've had in a long time. I'm excited for it. And I hope you all enjoy the ride. And with that, we'll wrap it up. We'll see y'all on the next one.